world's changing. And you are right in the center of it.
I don't know what's ahead, but all bets are off.
The heavyweight main event. Alistair Overeem getting a win over a top 10 ranked contender in Augusto Sakai, and he had to kind of earn it, BC. First couple of rounds, Sakai, very patient. This fight ended up being kind of sneaky good, but in the end, Overeem gets the win with a fifth-round TKO. Absolutely vicious ground and pound on top. Okay, first question, before we get to some of the larger implications. Is this the kind of win that tells you he is actually capable of another title run?
It is. It is, Luke. 100%. This is 4 wins out of his last 5 fights. I know right now the heavyweight division is deeper than it's been in a while. It's a little bit sexy at the moment. Yet at that same time, you can be older. You can reinvent yourself. You're really always 2 to 3 good wins from getting right back in there. Well, he's got 4 wins in 5 fights. And oh, by the way, that 5th fight was that knockout loss to Rosenstruck in which he was pretty much winning for 4 3/4 rounds. He's 40 years old. He is a man. Come after him. But I did talk to him last week, and I like his perspective. He knows he's, quote, too old for this game now, or so he says. So he's in the midst of what he's calling this last run, going all in. He knows the mistakes he made against Stipe 4 years ago in his only UFC title shot. He knows the hit and miss of his initial run in UFC when he came in with big fanfare, walked through Brock Lesnar, and then started kind of getting knocked out by people he shouldn't have in fights where he was up big. You remember Travis Brown, fights like that. Well, look, he's reinvented himself a few times, and I really like this version of who he is right now, Luke. He can still be the destroyer if he needs to be, the demolition man, whatever you want to call him, and he can put you away with knees just like he did back in the day. But he's so much of a smarter fighter now, a calculated fighter. I absolutely loved what he did in this 5-round fight, knowing Sakai had never gone past 3, knowing he may have to give up the opening rounds. They were very close. I did have it 2-0 Sakai, but he knew that it was going to change if he could figure out an opening, which he did with his takedowns and his ground game. And you mentioned it, absolutely vicious ground and pound. Luke, I love victories like this, because it felt a little bit like natural selection. Sakai was unbeaten in the UFC. He showed us a little flashes of some good stuff. I thought it was a little overrated coming in. He had some split decision wins, love handles flying all over. Not going to hold that against him. But he's going in the deep end of the pool. And Overeem dragged him there, and it wasn't pretty, and it hurt getting there. And he gutted out a damn win. Yes, get him right up into another big fight. He told me before this fight he's 1 or 2 wins at most away from a title shot. You could certainly argue against that given the names hovering around the situation, which includes John Jones is parachuting in. But God damn it. I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that, Luke. I don't even say that word in my house. This felt good. Never been an Overeem super fan, but love and respect how he gutted this thing out. And he had to finish Sakai. This wasn't the ref jumping in too early. He had to beat the youth out of him, beat the life out of him. And this is what you have to do at this level. And it was hard not to come out of that happy to see the veteran pull that off.
You know, Overeem's resume, which we'll talk about the implications of in just a second, but if you just look at it, it's filled with plenty of blemishes, double-digit losses. I suspect if he fought for a little bit longer, he might even reach 20 losses. He'd probably reach a lot more wins. But I'm just saying, you know, he has been through the ringer on this one, and he has had a lot of setbacks. There's a lot of guys he beat up front that when he had rematches with, he lost, and he lost badly, like Sergey Karatanov. It's a thing that's happened to him kind of over and over again. And so it's funny, like, how has he managed this much success? He just refuses to quit. He continues to just press forward. But the reason why you can press forward is not just sheer force of will. It's reinvention. It is constant reinvention. Here is the point about Overeem. For a long time, he was a big, heavy, striking kind of inside fighter, both in kickboxing and to an extent in MMA. And now he is so much more than that. He can fight on the outside. He does have a good clinch when you need it, especially as you saw in this fight from a defensive standpoint. He would just kind of let Sakai, not let him, but he was not doing a whole lot early, to disrupt what Sakai was doing in the clinch, and he just kind of rolled with it there. It was a very comfortable space for him. And then eventually, as you noted, he got takedowns. He had good ground and pound. Folks have always told me, I remember my first year ever training, someone told me, like, oh, Alistair Overeem is not a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but he has a black belt guillotine, right? He's always had a ridiculously good guillotine. This guy has a million ways to win. And if you're smart and you're determined, like in the ways that he is, and you have constantly added skills through your 30s and found the right weight class, dude, you can do pretty impressive things. So to me, it's like, listen, you've got Stipe up there, he's got a loss to him. You've got Francis up there, he's got a loss to him. You got Curtis up there, he's got a loss to him. And all three of those guys beat him by way of stoppage. I'm going to be skeptical that he can beat those guys. But in beating Sakai the way that he did, he has earned the right for another step up the ladder. And he's right. If he beats one of those guys, some kind of rematch with any of those three, depending on how the circumstances shake out, is probably going to be in order. Or he could fight Derek Lewis, or who the hell knows. I'm just pointing out, the question was, is he capable of another title run? Not is he going to be the best guy in that division? Yes, of course he is. He is very much alive and well, although he understands and sees the exit door. Now, BC, it gets to the second part of our question. Let's assume he goes in that title run and he finds someone at the top of that division again and he gets another setback. At that point, let's say he calls it a day. These are all a lot of big ifs, but let's posit that. Is he the best fighter to never win a UFC title?
He's been a sneaky out in that debate, right? We always talk about that. Dan Henderson has worn that crown for a long time, especially after Bisping finally got it. I know Faber's lingering, but he did win the WEC title. And, you know, we got everybody from Joe Benavidez to whoever is your favorite at the moment in that discussion. I always forget to include Overeem in that. But again, go back and look at his freaking resume. Yeah, he's got 16 losses, but he's had 66 pro fights in just about every organization that mattered, won titles with Strikeforce and Dream, fought everybody at Pride, was an absolute warrior, has that whole kickboxing chapter to his career as well. Yeah, he might be there because he has fought everybody. You see a lot of knockout losses, and Luke, you remember a lot of those. They are vicious. I mean, just the Rosenstruck and the Ngannou losses together are two of the most brutal we've seen in this modern era. But it's not just his ability to reinvent himself. It's almost a freak-like ability to come back from those type of losses, not have them ruin his career. He doesn't get complacent. He's loving his new run right now with Team Elevation in Denver. Couldn't stop putting them over in terms of the youth he's feeling in there, learning new skills, rounding out his game. He might be in contention there. Dan Henderson won a Strikeforce title as well, never got to the top at UFC. I think I'd put him right behind Hendo, Luke.
Yeah, he's either there. I mean, there's a lot of interesting names you could put on that list. Yoel Romero's on that list. I'd put Joseph Benavidez on that list. There's a few you could certainly point to. I would say in terms of heavyweights, he is easily the best heavyweight to never wear a UFC crown, at least to this point, which is kind of interesting, right? He's beaten 5 different UFC heavyweight champs, and if you count Vitor Belfort, a light heavyweight champ as well. So he has 6 wins over UFC champions. Now, not when they were champions, obviously, but at a certain points in his career. To me, it tells me a couple of things. One, he is certainly on par with those guys in terms of a talent level. 2, we kind of fetishize a little bit, like having the UFC title, like it's this be-all, end-all demarcation of greatness. And it certainly is an important marker of success, but it's not the only one. Remember, this guy was a Dream, Strikeforce, and K1 champion simultaneously. Do I weigh that more than just grabbing a UFC interim heavyweight title or even winning it and then losing it right back-to-back? Yeah, I guess I'll say it out loud. I kind of do. And plus, he was a Strikeforce champion. Granted, there was a bit of an absentee moment there, but he was a Strikeforce champion when Strikeforce had a very good heavyweight division. So to me, like,
and
all
lacks
of these
drug testing, Luke, and lacks drug testing.
I mean, these things are so ridiculous. These arguments are so ridiculous to me. People were trying to give this to me on Saturday night when I said, people just can't decide what their arguments are anymore, right? So the argument is, oh, USADA's here. Everyone's going to have to get off stuff, and you're going to watch their performance decline. Oh, we know Overeem's been on stuff. Let's watch his performance decline. And it didn't. I had someone tweet me saying he's been taking HGH for all this time. Well, which is it, folks? Does it confer lasting benefit to the kind where you can be just as good or irrelevant as you ever have been? Or is it the case where once you get off of it, there is a precipitous decline and change in everything else in body composition? You have to decide how much it matters and what is the time horizon. And the amount of confused arguments that people send me about this, they don't even realize that they're self-contradictory.
We don't have to go down the road.
Okay, all right. I'm just pointing out, I don't give a fuck about that stuff because I don't think it matters.
We don't have to go down there, Luke Fauci, okay? We can make a joke and move on, all right?
I'm just saying what he was able to accomplish at that stage, to me, is pretty impressive across two sports. Plus, if you look at how he was fighting at that K1 time, I alluded to it previously, it was a lot of like hardcore inside fighting, and now he's doing something totally different. And so my only point being is, I put him on par with some of the best top 10 heavyweights, maybe inside the top 10 of all time. I don't want to say that if he never wins the title, we can't count that against him. You kind of have to, but you cannot lose sight of all of the other accolades, BC, he's put together that to me mean just as much, and in some cases, a little bit more.
2 quick points on him. I thought it was interesting that he told me his best win, the win that he covets the most, was the Brock Lesnar win. Now, I get it from a fanfare sense, right? Him stepping up to that UFC level was a big deal, but that was a somewhat diminished Brock. He had already been knocked out and lost the title. And the second thing, Luke, let's not forget how close he did come. I mean, even outside of the Stipe Tap joke, he knocked Miocic down and had him on Queer Street, if you will. And I know you will, Luke. So he was already that close. He's still a threat. I think he's a better fighter now than he even was 4 years ago. So he's, in a better spot to expose people like Sakai. Can he get over the top against the very super elite? It kind of remains to be seen. You nailed Derek Lewis as a potential right opponent for his next fight, considering he's lost to everybody else. But you saw Twitter's reaction Saturday night. How about Overeem's former teammate, John Jones? How about that fight? How about that as a proper introduction to the heavyweight division?
I love it. I love that one, too. Let me just add one more thing. We have sort of maligned heavyweight for a long time in MMA as like sort of the poor man's division, the sick man of MMA, in saying that all the other divisions were much, much better. And I think now, Overeem had a long time at light heavyweight. Now, he's been in heavyweight for a good long while at this point, but he certainly had some success and started his career out at light heavyweight. And, we've seen a couple other guys go from light heavyweight to heavyweight and not have quite the success that we thought. I'm not here to declare that like everything we thought about heavyweight was wrong, but I do think we probably want to amend the idea that it's some kind of really behind the times, behind the curve kind of division. It's not, for all the reasons that we mentioned, the best athletes, certainly in this country, get recruited for NBA or NFL or something along those lines when they're that size. And I think that still holds true. But I also think that we went too far, BC, in overselling just how bad it was. It's actually a pretty powerful division.
Sylvia? You blame Tim Sylvia for that?
Another guy who had size and will and made something of it. I don't know. I'm not sure what to say about that. There was a time when Sylvia was beating the Gan McGee's of the world, it wasn't necessarily the best division. It probably deserved some slander. But it's so different now. And last thing I'll say about this is why I think where you and I come down on Overeem. You and I are both, I think, of the position where I'm not sure his ceiling has changed. But this idea that the bottom has dropped out just because he's aged and had a few losses, that is so not true. He is very, very capable of beating anybody in that division on the right night. And so I'm curious to see what he can do with it. One more note, BC, back to you. Michelle Pereira had a nice win. Slapping donks out there. I wouldn't call it a Stockton slap. I'm not sure where, maybe it's the Sao Paulo slap. I'm not sure where he's from in Brazil. But this was a guy who you absolutely detested. And now You've come around to my way of thinking on this. What happened, BC?
I haven't fully reached around, if you will, Luke, but I will say I was very impressed. Look, it was the last fight of his UFC deal, so there was pressure on him to put away what had gone wrong the last two fights, right? He gassed out against Tristan Connolly, and then he had that weird DQ loss to Diego Sanchez in which he was winning. You know my issues. He's a damn circus clown because he was doing a lot of those theatrics not in the mindset of trying to win. Even before this fight started, dude, he did Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo for 5 minutes during his ring intro. That's gas you're going to need. Now, to his credit, and he did sort of shout it out afterwards, if you could only see how hard I trained. Luke, he was in sick shape for this fight. I mean, he is a freaking, a machine physically, and he did have the stamina to go 3 hard rounds in there against a tough out. And he made it look like he was fighting an amateur. I'm going to give him a lot of credit. Save for that second round where he had that 2-minute stretch of just knucklehead, capoeira kicks, Showtime kicks, flipping off the ceiling for, it was video game fighting. It was button mashing time. Outside of that, I saw a guy who actually could become a legit title contender because of just the outlandish athleticism, great timing. Okay, the slaps, okay, the trash talking. Secretly, I do love that stuff. But again, if you're angling that toward winning, right? When Nate Diaz double flips off Cerrone, it's to get in his head. If you're angling that stuff toward winning the fight, I'm going to back you. And this was a much needed performance. And this was even better than I thought he could have done, Luke. I mean, he absolutely dominated that Russian fella.
Imadaev. Yes, I'm very, very glad to hear that you agree you were wrong before. Okay, we move on to point number 2.
Whoa, hold on. Don't move on. I don't care that Jay's in his turbine engine all upset that No Escape never got a record deal. Luke, do you see title contender in that body? Okay, it is a wonderland.
Contender,
right?
yes. Title winner, he doesn't have enough discipline the way he fights to win, but he might be the best athlete in all of UFC.
But do you back DC that he's got to clean it up a little bit?
Yes, but he won't. And we know that he won't. So there's no point in, he is good enough on the right night to beat a ranked guy. But I don't know he's good enough to put a bunch of ranked wins together in a disciplined kind of campaign to claim a title.
Well, I want you to put him on the couch right now because Amanda Ribas, for example, his Brazilian countrywoman, she's out of control in interviews, but in the cage, man, she puts that crap together and goes in there to take you out. What's going on in that Brosef's brain? That's what I can't really figure out.
A question for a different time.
Are you in?
This is our time. The world's changed, and you are right in the center of it.
I don't know what's ahead, but all bets are off.